Happy Valentine's Day, everyone, and welcome back to the Quintessential Quintuplets, A Deeper Look. This is the series where we take a deeper analysis at each quintuplet individually. Last time we covered Ichika. This time we're going to be covering the angry fashionable Nino Nakano. And there's a brand new segment I want to add to this series straight away that I should have definitely done in the previous video, but I hadn't thought of this idea back when I made the first one. I also want to basically tell you guys who voices each quintuplets depending on which one we're covering. So Ichika was voiced by Kana Hanazawa and Nino is voiced by Ayane Taketatsu, and I'm also going to tell you a couple other characters that the actresses voice depending on who we're covering, if I know any other characters that they play. So for Kana Hanazawa, I don't know anyone else she plays, but for Ayane Taketatsu, she also plays Miyaka from Girlfriend Girlfriend and Azusa from K-On! Right then, let's start analysing Nino Nakano. So we need to rewind ourselves back to season 1. Nino's first ever interaction with Futaro was menacingly staring him down and telling him to go home. As Nino was... Jeez, I don't hate her. I don't know. Why have I started coughing now that I'm talking about Nino? She's not even my least favourite. So Nino is definitely the most unaccepting of Futaro compared to the other 4 quintuplets. She's the one who's most standoffish against him. She's the one who's never quite happy for him to be around. And that's made clear before Futaro even starts tutoring them, and when he does start tutoring them. As one of the first things she does for him when he goes over to their house to help them study is giving him a bunch of cookies, which is going to make him thirsty, and then spiking his drink to knock him out. That's literally the very first thing Nino ever does to Futaro. Not the best first impression, if I'm being honest. And every single time Futaro and Nino interact throughout the first half of the first season, it's usually Nino insulting Futaro and wanting him to go away. And it doesn't help Futaro's case, the fact that he saw Nino naked. Back when he forgot some flashcards he left in the quintuplet's house, so Miku let him back in, and Nino was drying her hair wearing nothing but a towel. And he put himself in a very compromised position by jumping on top of her so a bunch of books didn't land on her head and knock her out. And she uses that to try and get Futaro banned from ever entering their house again. Luckily, Itsuki saves Futaro because when she looks at the picture that she took, there's more evidence to suggest that Futaro was actually protecting Nino from the books, rather than doing something naughty to her. And Nino's hatred of Futaro from the first half of season 1 goes so far that she actually says to him that she doesn't even care if her sisters stop liking her, if it means she doesn't have to accept him. And that's the only side of Nino that we had seen. We briefly saw her act a little bit nicer to him during the fireworks festival that they went to, but that's because it was a happy occasion. And Nino did look a bit more, she looked at Futaro in a bit of a better light once she saw how he took care of Raiha. Because of course she has 4 sisters, but now she's seeing Futaro taking care of his own sister. But the side of Nino where she really changes and shows her a different side of her is when she meets good old Kintaro. They should have made it, I said it before and I'll say it again, they should have made it Kintaro an actual character, but he just looks exactly like Futaro. That would have been very interesting, but of course the dynamic they use, whether it's just Futaro in a wig, still does work. So when Nino meets Kintaro, she shows us a completely different side of her that she had never shown before, where she's actually really nice and caring towards him. We'd seen her being caring towards her sisters, but never towards Futaro. And the only reason she was caring towards Futaro is because she didn't actually know it was him. Even though he looks exactly the same as Futaro, just with different coloured hair. And she only thought that because of the photo she saw of young Futaro, with that picture of him and Yotsuba, but she didn't open the other side of it, so she didn't know that Futaro's actually met the quintuplets before. And we end up with a first season of Nino ending the season acting quite nice towards Futaro compared to how we started off. She's still not nice to him, but she doesn't want to kick him out of the house anymore. Like, she's more open to Futaro. She's finally more open to Futaro tutoring her along with the rest of the quintuplets. And of course, Nino does indeed, like all the other 4 quintuplets, is worried about Futaro and checks on him after he passed out at the skiing part of the trip. Still don't understand how all 5 quintuplets were in that room at the same time and not a single one knew any of the others were in there. So Nino ends the first season probably neutral towards Futaro. She doesn't like him, but she doesn't dislike him anymore. And as we know, Nino has had the biggest swing in terms of fan opinions on her out of any of the quintuplets. Because at the end of the first season, I bet that a lot of people, including myself, had Nino as their least favourite quintuplet. She was my least favourite quintuplet after the first season. But the second season is where all of that changed and she became a lot of people's favourite quintuplet of them all. Of course, she's not my favourite. You already know who my favourite is. So the second season starts off very differently to the first season, as while Futaro is recovering in hospital after he passed out, the first quintuplet that comes to visit him is Nino. The one that was the most standoffish and the one that insulted him the most in the first season begins the second season being the first quintuplet to visit him. And of course, the show does play into the Kintaro dynamic one more time, in order for Futaro to try and get some information out of Nino. And then, of course, we have Nino being very, very embarrassed. Again, another side of her we are not used to seeing. Where she invites Kintaro over to the hotel room she's in after, of course, she had a big fight with Itsuki at the very start of the season and left home, as did Itsuki. Nino went to a luxury hotel, Itsuki went to Futaro's house. Only one of them got a good deal out of that, and it wasn't Itsuki. So we have the interaction between Futaro and Nino in Kintaro mode, when Nino gets really embarrassed, has to go out to the balcony to call Futaro on her phone for him to be standing like 15 feet away from her. giving her information on Kintaro when he's really giving it about himself. Nino, of course, then learns Futaro is actually the one all along who's been pretending to be Kintaro, as there is no Kintaro. Of course, the lucky charm bracelet that was made by Raiha for him was the deal breaker. That's what really screwed Futaro over. And for the second time in the show, Nino drugs him. And yet her moment of realization that she just might be in love with him is when they almost drown. Specifically Nino, as she almost drowns because she's the only quintuplet who can't really swim. Which makes you wonder, why did she jump into that lake in the first place if she can't swim? Like, Futaro can swim by himself. He doesn't need the five of you to help him, but they did it anyway. But as Futaro is holding Nino and brings her back up to the surface, that's the moment when Nino first begins to feel, oof, I'm in love with this guy, aren't I? Yes, Nino, you are. The next moment of that realization is when Futaro becomes Nino's knight in shining armor, or colleague that's wearing a helmet on a motorcycle. Close enough. Then, of course, that brings us to Nino's confession to Futaro, which, of course, as we know, she did it twice. She did it on the motorcycle, where Futaro didn't hear her, and they make a very comedic scene out of it, where the music is building up. Nino, she's gonna say it. What's Futaro's reaction gonna be? What did you say? I didn't hear. Building up the tension only to subvert expectations by Futaro just not having a clue what she said. Only for her to go back and confess a second time. Which of course Ichika heard, as we talked about in the previous video. Then Nino and Ichika have a heart-to-heart at their grandpa's hot springs on who she's in love with, and Ichika's like, oh boy, I know who you're in love with, and it sucks, because so I'm in love with the exact same guy. And Nino says she won't stop at anything to get with Futaro. She doesn't care who she has to go through to get to him. Not realising that her sisters are the other people she has to go through to get to him. And then Nino even starts calling Futaro Fukun as his nickname, which is something Miku came up with, which very quickly makes Miku a bit taken off guard. Like, I'm the one who came up with that nickname, why are you using it? And then that's literally what Nino spends the rest of the season calling him. And then of course we get to the Kyoto trip, of which we see a flashback of Nino and Miku from way long ago, when Miku came over to Nino's new hotel room to cut her hair, when Nino's hair gets cut from long to short. And am I the only one who thinks Nino with short hair actually looks better than she did with long hair? Like, I think Nino's current look at the end of season 2 and the movie is better than what she had for all of season 1 and the first half of season 2. That's just me though. And then, when Miku's crying, feeling sorry for herself after what Ichika did to her at the Kyoto trip, still haven't forgiven her for that one yet, Nino gives Miku the words of encouragement to make it sound like she's saying, oh, you've given up, how pathetic. But really she's giving Miku encouragement to get your ass up and get after Futaro. Even if Nino does falter a little bit during that process when she knocks Futaro into Miku and she falls into the little water area. So in the end, the final big thing Nino does in season 2 is when she has a pretty stern talking to Ichika where she tells her, how could you do such a thing to Miku? And Ichika says, oh, don't you talk like you have anything to hide. Don't act like you're perfect. You said you would go through anyone to be with him. And Nino said, yes, I did say that, but the bond I have with the four of you, I care about just as much. I would have been happy if he had chosen you. That was the one fatal flaw Ichika didn't realise. Nino said even if she didn't win, she would still be happy for whoever did. And the show and season 2 ends with Nino's confession being out there, Futaro's fully aware of it, but she hasn't won yet. So overall, Nino as a character definitely is the quintuplet that had the most character development out of the 5 of them. I think Nino's character development from season 1 episode 1 to season 2 episode 12 is very, very good. She goes from being just the angry sister that hates Futaro and doesn't want anything to do with him, to warming up to him, and then even falling in love with him later on. I like Nino, she's a very good character, but there's of course 3 more quintuplets that I like a bit more than her. And we still have all 3 of those quintuplets to cover. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new. Is Nino your favourite quintuplet? If so, please tell me in the comments. If not, then tell me who it is. But until next time, catch you later.